I have told dozens and dozens of podcasters and podcast clients and people who have asked me questions what we're going to talk about today in today's episode, and many of them were not happy when I gave them this answer. Podcast Growth Nation, today for episode number 180, the habit most podcasters hate that you need to be doing. I've talked to many podcasters and gotten asked many questions, and one of the questions that I've gotten asked is, what should I be doing more of? And this is one of those. And it's one of those, you should be doing more of it, even though you probably want to do it less. We have a framework that we use often for Next Level University. It is prep, rep, reflect, and perfect. You've probably heard me say that in the past. I don't know if we've done a dedicated episode on that, but prep. We want to do the prep work. We want to know what we're talking about. We want to know who we're interviewing. We want to know what our call to action is, what our hook is. We want to know. Right? We want to make sure we're fully prepared to add value. So that is the prep. Rep, that is show up and do it. So right now I am doing the rep. Reflect. This is the part people don't like. You got to go back and watch your episodes. You got to go back and listen to your episodes. You got to listen to your interviews. You have to look at your old content. You have to essentially eat your own cooking is maybe the best way to put it. You have to eat your own cooking. You have to make sure that you're watching the game footage to see what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. And then with that, the perfect is try to get a little bit better. Try to do something a little bit different. Try to strengthen one of the weaknesses. So you prepare, you show up and do it, you find an opportunity for improvement, and then you improve on that. The thing most people don't like to do is they don't like to listen to themselves or they don't like to watch themselves because it's very uncomfortable in the beginning. And that is one of the most common mistakes I see. People say, oh, I hate my voice. I don't like the way I look. I do weird things. We all do, first of all. Nobody likes the way they sound or look in the beginning. And it's just like anything else. It is a muscle that as you work it, it gets stronger. So if you're out there and you are not reviewing your episodes, I'm telling you that is a giant mistake. One of the reasons, maybe the best reason, I would say maybe the second or third best reason, is when you're reviewing an episode, you're fully present. So you're not in your head, you're not stressed out, you're not feeling anxious, you don't feel a ton of pressure, and you can imagine what you wish you would have said. So when I'm reviewing our episodes and we get to a certain place in the episode, I will imagine and say, I'm guessing this is probably what I said next, because that's what I would say right now in a centered place. Same thing with this. If I review this episode and I get to a point where I'm imagining this is what I'm going to say next, and I don't, that means something. It doesn't necessarily mean the episode's not valuable. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means that from a more centered place, from a more present place, I might have gone in a different direction. And I think this is really big for guest interviews because it's really hard to actively listen without losing the question that you want to ask after. And I think it's a really challenging thing. So if you don't review your tape, imagine you're playing for a sports team. Let's say you're playing football. I played football for 1 year in high school and realized I am too little for this. This is not for me. But we would have to review our footage. We'd have to review our film and say, okay, this is what happened on that play. This is actually what led to the touchdown, even though nobody saw it. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. And people who are really, really professionals, they really take their craft seriously. They do a lot of review. I don't know if this is still the case. Alan said this on a recent episode, but he said that Beyonce used to, I don't know if she still does, go back to the hotel after every performance and watch her performance to see what went right, what went wrong. This is a simple habit. A simple habit. If you have enough time to record it, you most likely have enough time to review it. And I'm also talking trash a little bit because I'm struggling to keep up with our 8 episodes a week between NLU and this. But in an ideal world, I should be reviewing everything. In an ideal world, if I've been on your podcast, I would have reviewed that too. And I do occasionally, but I need to do a better job of going back and reviewing an entire episode. Every day. That should be a habit. Now, for you, if you do 1 episode a week, you don't have to do it every day, right? So it's not as overwhelming. But this is a really, really important habit. for anybody who's trying to get better at communication, at questions, at answers, at anything in general. If you're trying to be a better podcaster, this is the way to do it. It's like, imagine posting content on social media and then never looking back to see what you used to post. You wouldn't really know if you were getting better. I just think it's super important. And then part 2 of this practice is go back and look at your old content, at your old episodes, at your old thumbnails, at your old titles. If you've been doing this for a year, let's just say, and you've done 52 episodes, go and look at your first one and see how far you've come. It is that fine line, is the fine line of the appreciation for where you are and the gratitude for where you are, but also the ambition to get to where you want to go to. Juggling those at the same time. So if you feel like you're crushing it right now, go look at your old content. You'll probably feel like you're crushing it more. And if you feel like you're terrible right now and you're the worst, go look at your old content. I'm willing to bet you'll probably feel better because you've probably grown. And that framework, prep, rep, reflect, perfect, is a really good way to continue growing. It's something we did a ton in the beginning. And as we went from 1 episode to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7, obviously it's harder to keep up with, but that does not make it any less valuable. If anything, it's more valuable at this point because there's way more content for me to review. So I'm talking to myself. I am messing up by not doing this, and I would argue that you are most likely messing up too, because it's a habit that once you start, I know most podcasters are never going to go to 7 episodes a week because it doesn't serve the purpose that they decided to start podcasting for. Once you build the habit with 1 episode, maybe you eventually go up to 2 or 3. You already have the habit built in, so it makes it a little bit easier. And if you notice, let's say, this is one of the most common things. I think this is an important part. Retention and total listen, the amount of an episode that is listened to on average, retention, average view duration on YouTube, however you want to look at it, is very, very important for the algorithm. If you have a guest on and in the recording you didn't notice, but their audio quality is not good, that's something to catch. If you don't notice recording live a solo episode because you don't have real-time feedback, there was a humming, there was a buzzing, there was this, you might never know until you see the final product. So that's the other piece, is you're going to see/hear things that you never did. Maybe you do something weird when you're interviewing somebody with your hands or your eyes or whatever. You'll never know if you don't watch it, and if you never know, you can't work on improving it. So it becomes this, I don't like the way I look because I've never desensitized myself to the way I look, so I'm never going to like the way I look, so I'm never going to watch. And I think it gets harder over time. I don't know. I imagine you've done 150 episodes and you've never listened back or watched. I don't know. Maybe it's easier because you feel more confident and more competent. Or maybe it's harder because you've done this for so long and you're like, I don't really want to know what I look like or sound like. So I don't know. I don't know whether it's a positive or negative. But what I do know is this is a habit that would benefit any podcaster, any content creator, really, anybody who's trying to get better at stuff. I'm not as big a fan in mixed martial arts anymore, but I used to be a very big fan. And one of the common things as a fighter, this is what fighters do, they review their tape. What did I do right? What did I do wrong? Oh yeah, my left hand was coming down a little bit when I was throwing my kick or whatever it is, right? Because you don't know in the moment. It's very, very hard to be so aware in the moment of what you're doing to know whether or not you would do it differently. I tend to be pretty present in the moment, especially for solos. For guest episodes, for interviewing, it was always a little bit harder for me because I was always nervous I wasn't going to remember my next question. That was always a thing. It was really hard for me to get into flow. With solo episodes, I literally have the title of the episode and then all the rest of this is just flow. If I go down a rabbit hole, I try to make sure I bring it back. A lot of these are just points that come to me when I start talking about it, so it's a little bit different. This is designed for me to be able to be in flow and just be here and try to add value, as opposed to having a checklist of things that I want to touch on. Some episodes I'll have that, if I have a lot of stats or something that I don't want to have to remember. But if I go back and listen to this and I get to a point where I say, shoot, I really should have said this, that's good. Okay, maybe I should do more prep. Or you get to a point where you review it and you say, I sound like a robot. Okay, maybe we prepped too much. That is the beauty of the prep, rep, reflect, and perfect, is when you reflect, it changes the way you prep, it changes the way you rep, and it changes what you perfect. You can't do the system without that one. You can't do the system without any of them, but still. It's probably the best way to get better because you're already most likely prepping and you're already doing the rep. And you're probably trying to think to yourself, well, what could I have done better? But if you're not listening to the final product, you don't know. It's like a chef cooking something and not testing it. They don't really know what it tastes like. They can get feedback from somebody who's eating it at dinner, but it's not the same. And also, excuse me, it's snowing heavily in New Hampshire right now. The plow is outside if you hear the beeping sound. But that really was the point in today's episode. I think not every episode has to be a super deep one or a bunch of different stuff. I think this one is a very simple habit that has served us really well and is one that I'm noticing that I'm not doing. So full disclosure, full ownership. I am not doing this as much as I need to, and it would benefit me as much as anybody else to do it, and I am committed to getting back into it. And I suggest it for everybody. I think it's great. If you don't like the way you sound, it'll go away. If you don't like the way you look, it'll go away. I can promise you that. I'm so used to hearing myself, it doesn't even register anymore as my voice. I'm just so used to it. But that never would have happened if I didn't start. It's easy to get started when you don't have a ton of content yet, when you probably don't have a ton of episodes because you can work your way in. So that's my suggestion. All right, cool. If you are stuck in any way when it comes to growing or scaling or making money from your podcast, whatever it is, I will have my link below for a free 30-minute podcast breakthrough session. Bring all the questions you got. I'm happy to answer everything. And again, I most likely will tell you to review your show. If you're not, I most likely will tell you to. Please don't hate me, but I do think it'll be beneficial. And then we have a private Facebook group called Podcast Growth Nation. We'll have the link below. There's posts in there all the time. As we get towards 2026, I'm trying to get more in there with like lives, that type of stuff, maybe some Q&As. It just hasn't been super sustainable yet based on all the stuff going on behind the scenes, but I am committed to that, and that's something I want to do more and more and more of. That's another important thing, and we've talked about this before, but we have to start something from a place of sustainability, right? So I'm not saying you have to review every minute of every episode all the time. I think in an ideal world, maybe we could get there, but start with 5 minutes. Start with one question. Start with a hook. Start with a story. It doesn't have to be everything all at once. Start with something sustainable. That's always a principle that has really, really served me. I'll speak to that. So until next week, keep on crushing it, keep on podcasting, and I will talk to you all then.